How did your brother's taking his own life impact your parents?
Devastated them. I, I can't imagine losing a child, but devastated is really the only word I can even think about.
The good side of this story is that a show like this, with you being courageous enough to speak about what is obviously a painful experience, can lead to a good, which is that somebody who's out there who's thinking that they might take their own life might stop right now and think it through another way. Speak directly to the people in our audience that are thinking of taking their own lives. What do you want to say to them personally?
That there's help. Like, is the first thing. There's places you can go for help. Think about the people you leave behind. People love you, people care about you, and it might be hard to kind of see that right now, and the pain that you're in, but people do love you.
Anything else?
I can't think of anything right now, other than there is help.
You said that one of the most difficult things for you was to look back on what had occurred, and in Raymond's case, treatment, multiple suicide attempts. But if you had called home that day, how big a burden is it to live with that kind of a thought?
In comparison to others, I don't know how much. I think every one of my family members has kind of a different level. My sister, who was home sleeping upstairs that morning, when he took the pills, if she'd come downstairs when she heard the dog barking. There's every family member kind of has different levels of what ifs.
If I may synopsize what she said, I can't say it better, but I can say it again. If you're thinking of committing suicide, don't. Realize that what you're thinking and what you're feeling, as real as it looks, can change over time for the better. And remember that while suicide, from our own perspective, might end our suffering, it's just the beginning of the pain and suffering for the families that survive. We'll be back in a moment with more on suicide prevention with Medical Matters. For the viewers here, we did a show some time ago, and we were talking with an organization that provided training in school systems on the basics of mental illness, including what some of the symptoms were and how one could get involved in help. And I was absolutely horrified to learn that there were many schools across the United States that refused this program to come into their schools based on pressure from parents. And the argument was as follows: I don't want the children in school to be taught about mental illness because my child will be singled out as one of those, and I don't want that stigma put on that child. My reaction to that logic, and the guest that spoke to it, and this is what the guest said that was an expert, they said, it is true that you may feel stigma, but the greater truth is that we must take action to help those who are having problems, to educate, inspire, and help to move things forward. So I think that it isn't that the stigma argument is without validity on all levels. It just isn't the primary value on the table. Linda, do you have a comment on that one?
As Tracy mentioned before, there is quite a stigma with suicide. And I think just by doing this show, it's opening a door for individuals to talk about it. I'm really proud to sit on the couch with with Renae and Tracy and Lisa to talk about suicide and suicide prevention from a community standpoint, from a provider standpoint, outreach, and as a survivor. I'm very proud to sit on the couch with these women to talk about suicide and suicide prevention, and it is important for people to get help and to know that there is help out there.
Is there any point that the two of you want to make related to what we're talking about right now?
Well, I think I would just like to add, while it's hard to get into schools, like you mentioned, to talk about mental illness, it's even harder to get into schools to talk about suicide. And it is for the same reasons that people think if you talk about it, that you will give people ideas that wouldn't have had that thought before, and it's such a myth. And
Do
we
you
run
think
into
that if we engage students in discussions on suicide, do you have any reason to believe that it would make any positive difference at all?
If we were
If we
to
did,
talk about it,
if all schools
I'm
would allow these
certain.
training programs.
I'm certain that it
Describe
would make a difference.
how that benefit would work and how you know it would occur.
Well, a lot of times we're going into schools and we're talking adolescents, even younger children sometimes, and we're teaching them what are the warning signs and what do you do if you have a friend who comes to you and tells you that they're feeling like hurting or killing themselves. A lot of times the child or the adolescent's inclination is to keep it a secret, and we need to talk with children about that you can't keep a secret. You've got to tell someone. You've got to get the help into that person. That does make a difference to change the way
Let's
people
talk
think.
about that in a little bit more detail. Someone has depressive thoughts, or they're truly experiencing depression, which are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Depression is a clinical state of mind which has certain criteria which, when they're met, a professional would say you are depressed, but there are also depressed thoughts, and you might have those. Actually, everybody has those sometimes. But you're saying that it's very, very important for someone who's experiencing either depression or depressed thoughts, which that person might have trouble determining which it was, but they know they were in a place that was tough. It's so important for them to reach out and to talk to somebody. Why?
First off, to know that they're not alone. And second off, that a lot of times depression, suicide, those things that they don't magically go away until there's some treatment, there's involvement of professionals that can provide that service, until they've maybe talked to someone like Renae that can express her story. Those things are significantly helpful to people, and suicide is completely preventable. Depression is completely treatable, and there is help out there for people experiencing those things.
Mm-hmm. Lisa, did you have anything to add on that?
Just again talking about it, doing some myth busting. I mean, if people are already having those thoughts, talking about it isn't going to make it worse. Talking about it is only going to help. Letting people know that they're not alone and that there is help out there, I think is the strongest point to make.
If we were to look at society's views about suicide, what do you think the average American thinks when that topic comes up? What are they thinking?
And I think suicide, I feel like a lot of people think it's kind of a selfish act. That's kind of what I think. They don't really, a lot of people don't know that people who die by suicide, 90% of them have a diagnosable and treatable mental health illness. And a lot of times people think that it's caused by, some other external factor, like a breakup or something like that. And a lot of people don't realize the people who die by suicide are very sick.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I will say it's, if cancer is left untreated, it can be fatal, and if depression is left untreated, it can be fatal. So.
What are some of the perceptions you think are out there?
I think people don't realize how much psychological pain is associated with it, that the majority of people who end up killing themselves, they don't want to die. Right up to the moment of their attempt to take their life, don't want to die, but they've gotten to a point where the pain is so severe that they can't see other options. And that's when an attempt typically takes place. And for that reason, because of that ambivalence that a lot of people are feeling in terms of living or dying and what are my choices here, that's why help can be so helpful to people, that we can talk about options with people.
For more Medical Matters television shows, go online to medicalmatters.tv.